what do you think we should expect in terms of primary deal flow and the Central European markets? What's the outlook?
Yeah, I think the future is bright, but not spectacular. We had very good pipeline, especially in countries like Poland and generally Central Europe in the last 12 months. I think it's going to continue, but of course with a coming slowdown you have to think twice whether, for example, valuations or financing would that be so readily available to all the players in the market.
So it looks like there is quite a big pipeline already. So except from valuation, what else is holding it off from materializing? Is it problems with fundraising or anything else?
Well, generally the deal mortality is quite high, and this is partially because there is enough competition, which is good for the sellers. There is a lot of private equity funds which are interested in several situations, and in the end only one would buy and all the others would be unhappy. But I think the issue is that with the coming slowdown, you are thinking whether the levels of valuations, whether the financing or leverage you take, is it not too risky? And finally, we are talking about expansion capital, so people would like to see growth. If you are asking yourself whether you have this growth in certain sectors which are almost saturated, and in the economy which is not growing, say, in a pace of 5 to 6%, and you have a possibility of ending up in 2% growth, you are thinking twice whether for this kind of business you really need to take higher leverage, whether you would have people who would buy it from you. So I think, especially from private equity point of view, they will be much more selective. So they will be looking at a lot of opportunities, but in the end they will be selecting only these best opportunities.
So everybody has to stay opportunistic.
Well, in a way, for good things, you probably have to pay well because you have to compete against other people. But this is important that for very good assets, for quality assets, it's probably even less risky to pay more than to pay less for lower equity for lower quality assets.
You personally, for how long are you ready to stay optimistic?
Well, I wouldn't say that I'm so optimistic. I would say the past was very bright. Actually, the last 2 years, compared especially against Western Europe, was quite positive. I think the next 6 to 12 months are still good because we see the pipeline. Then there is a slowdown, and I think people have to live in the times of slowdown. So I would say I'm fairly optimistic that these slowdowns are not catastrophes. These are not that kind of problems you have in some economies, especially talking about Central Europe. There will be always some geographies which will struggle. To give you an example, some CIS geographies, for example, were not very fashionable, and for a reason, because the economic fundamentals were so bad that whatever you do was always extremely risky. Now I would say Central Europe still stable, but not necessarily growing that high as in the past.
Well, let's hope for the best then.
Of course.